Okay. Looks like we are in. Hi everybody, welcome to UPSC Buffet. Let's get started with today's session. We'll be discussing about 2023 PYQ and geography part of that PYQ. So like I said always when we discuss the polity economy side of things, that 2023 was a slight deviation from the usual trend that UPSC had in the previous years. But there were some recurrent phenomena that still continued. Okay, like I said, insolation, clouds, and matters like ocean currents, temperature distribution. These are the kind of themes UPSC used to ask since the last 10 years. So even if you take 2011 questions since then, the trend in UPSC like geography part especially has been remaining constant. So that is there, but more emphasis was given on the mapping side of things, and I actually club map with geography so that it helps you understand it better. I don't consider it as international relation, because this is where I feel like you need to be connecting that geographical side of things with the international relation, because questions can be linked in such a way that, you know, description of a region, like last day we have discussed in 2022 the Levant region. So questions like that could be asked about any other region like Congo region or Sahel region, which I will be discussing in today's session. So let's get started. So yeah, the first question. If you could remember things correctly, we have discussed this exact question in a different format in 2021 PYQ. So that's another story. So this is where I feel like I'm re-emphasizing the actual relevance of PYQs. So this exact question in a different format was asked. Okay, the soil in tropical rainforest is rich in nutrients. The high temperature that's the first statement, and the high temperature and the moisture of tropical rainforest cause dead organic matter in the soil to decompose quickly. This is where our normal picture or our image of a tropical rainforest needs some improvement or needs some fact checking, because if you imagine the tropical rainforest, we imagine it to be the most fertile because it has got a lot of biodiversity, large trees grow, everything happens. But there is one issue: the soil is actually bare and very little humus content is there, because the decomposition is very fast and rapid, that no organic matter remains, because it's a very conducive environment for rapid decomposition. The detritivores actually act very fast because of the high temperature and high moisture. These are the two factors actually making the tropical soils less nutrient rich actually. In fact, it's mostly devoid of humus or organic material. This may seem a little counterintuitive for some, including myself. I had this counterintuition because it didn't sit well with me. But that's the fact, and that there is an actual reason for that. If you imagine that how food gets spoiled. Food gets spoiled when there is enough moisture and heat. So in our place, like in Kerala, if we put food outside on a summer day, it will get spoiled very fast. But compare that with Kashmir or some other place, they can actually store food without refrigeration for a longer period of time because the decomposition is slower. In fact, it's almost arrested, and that's exactly what refrigerators do at our homes. So just have that connection. High temperature and moisture of the tropical rainforest cause the dead organic matter in the soil to decompose quickly. This statement is right, and this is a factual statement that it is not. So this is wrong, this is right, and the answer will be D. It's an easy question, especially if you have gone through the PYQs. As I think it's 2021. I'll just go and look at it, because 2022 we haven't discussed. I guess it's 2021. So yeah, just 2 years back, same question has been packaged in a different format, but in a very easy context. As in, the first statement itself is wrong, and you will get the answer. That was such a long hanging fruit if you have actually gone through the PYQs. This is why doing more questions is not the way to go. Doing the right questions, especially the PYQs, again and again, can actually fetch you marks. This is like the easiest mark you could get in this examination. And everything matters. Every question carries the same mark. So whether or not you have studied the art and culture in its entirety and marked 2 questions right, and you could just simply get 2 questions right from these PYQs, you do the math, and you can analyze the risk to reward ratio or the effort to reward ratio. So this is it, and that's the insight I should be giving you. Go through the PYQs, you will get at least 2-3 questions from that, and that's immensely rewarding. With reference to Earth's atmosphere, okay, UPSC's favorite. The same question has been asked in a different format last year. as in high clouds and low clouds. The same concept is applicable here. It's just slightly on a different level. Okay, but we can do that with the same level of knowledge we had with the clouds. So the total amount of insolation received at the equator is roughly about 10 times of that received at the pole. Strictly factual, I have absolutely no clue. So that leaves me with elimination. So I should be going through the options and I should be eliminating. That should be the approach. Infrared rays constitute roughly 2/3 of insolation. Insolation means incoming solar radiation. You know, and we have discussed yesterday itself, that the incoming solar radiation is mostly what? It's mostly ultraviolet. It's in the ultraviolet spectrum. That is short wave, high frequency spectrum. And the infrared radiation is actually the radiation emitted by the earth, acting like a black body, absorbing the UV and re-emitting it. Just like a hot body absorbing heat and re-emitting it later, re-emitting as through radiation later. And that emission will always be in a long wave format, because that's re-emitting a radiation that is being absorbed. So the long wave radiation is emitted by the earth and the short wave is given by the sun. So sun's radiation is ultraviolet. So infrared is actually by the terrestrial radiation, or the radiation that is re-emitted by the earth. So this is very, very unlikely, because insolation is almost entirely composed of UV. Of course, there will be some infrared rays coming here and there, but the majority of the spectrum will be UV only. This is wrong. Absolutely wrong. So infrared waves are largely absorbed by the water vapor that is concentrated in the lower atmosphere. Does this make sense to you? Do you feel hotter on a humid day, even though the temperature might be say for 26 degrees, but if it's humid, it feels like 30 degrees. Because why? The water vapor in the atmosphere, that is the humidity, absorbs the heat and actually creates a higher state of temperature there. A local higher temperature will be there, and this can actually be felt by us also. And there is another phenomena, because humidity actually reduces the body's ability to sweat. That's another phenomena. That is why we feel all the heat there. So that's there. But the same concept is applicable here. Infrared waves are actually absorbed by the lower atmosphere. That makes sense. Even though you are not entirely sure, this is a sensible statement. Okay. Then let's keep that aside. We have kept this and this aside, and we have eliminated this. Okay. Now moving on to the fourth statement. Infrared waves are a part of visible spectrum of electromagnetic radiation, waves of solar radiation. Are they? No. They are the infrared. They are the ones below the visible spectrum, as in the frequency count. The wavelength count, and actually in the frequency count, they are below the visible spectrum, and UVs are above the visible spectrum in frequency, in terms of frequency. So they are not part of visible spectrum, because we know that infrared waves are the ones that is emitted by our remote controls. Can we see that? No, we cannot see that. But if we point a camera towards that, we can see a dot or the blinking or the actions through a camera. Not visible. It's not visible for our eyes. We can only view them through other devices. So it's not part of visible spectrum. So also take that note of it. If you don't know, it's infrared waves that are being used in remote controls, and that is why it is called IR blasters in phones and all. It's called IR blasters. So they emit infrared waves, and they blast that radiation to transmit the signal. So that's not the case. Then infrared, one more fact I will tell you, since we are in the topic. Infrared rays are usually used for communication devices or transmitting information, things like that. Whereas UV is used for, UV is a high energy radiation. So they are mostly used for cleaning or like those sort of applications, cleaning applications, things like that, or where high energy transfer is required. So they possess higher energy than infrareds because of their higher frequency, and frequency is directly proportional to energy. E is equal to h nu. So that's it. This is not the right answer. This is definitely not the right answer. Total amount of insolation received at the equator is roughly about 10 times of that received at the poles. Maybe if you imagine that, okay, at the equator it's blazing hot, and at the poles it's super cold. So we might think that, okay, it's 10 times because of the tilt of the axis, or maybe, but it could be wrong also, because what if this is not 10? What if this is 12? What if this is 6? We don't really know. And there is no particular fact we have ever read or come across. At least I have come across. But for this question, this makes perfect sense. Infrared waves are largely absorbed by the water vapor. Yeah, water vapors do absorb the infrared radiation, and that is concentrated in the lower atmosphere. Yeah, of course, as we all know, water vapor is concentrated in the lower atmosphere, and that percentage is actually higher than that of the rivers even. So that information also helps. So they can actually absorb it and store it, and yeah, that's it. That's how water vapors are becoming one of the largest greenhouse gas. Water vapor is one of the largest constituent greenhouse gas also. So that is there. So this should be the answer, and I'll choose C. So that's how I arrive at the answer. I hope you get the idea. I'll be discussing too many things, but try to align with the logic and approach I'm having. It's not that you should be doing all of this at every question, but you could be using one or two of these techniques in every question. That's the goal. So I'll be solving question taking some time. That doesn't mean that in the actual exam I should be going this slow. As you all know, we'll be doing this automatically, involuntarily. We'll be doing this in a very fast fashion, and this is where practice comes into the picture. And I highly recommend you take a good test series that is overseen by actual aspirants and veterans, not that is being outsourced. Actual aspirant veterans, the questions made by actual aspirants and veterans, they know the pulse of UPSC better than anybody else. So stick to such a test series, and our test series in Gallant IAS is actually one where I am the one supervising that, along with well qualified minders like me. So that is there. So I'll recommend you take a test like Gallant IAS. Then moving on, next one. The temperature contrast between continents and oceans is greater during summer than in winter. The specific heat of water is more than that of land surface. This is actually a tricky question. If you have read NCERT and if you remember things correctly, you could easily get the answer, because this is very factual in nature, and this is regarding the isotherms and distribution of isotherms between the months of January and July, basically summer and winter. And the first statement is slightly tricky. I agree to that. The second one, the specific heat of water is more than that of land surface. This we know. We have always heard that land heats up faster and cools faster, whereas water heats up slower and loses heat slower, meaning that specific heat of water is more than that of land surface. That is true. So this statement is right. And about this statement, this is where some level of factual knowledge is needed. That we have to make an assumption that if the whole weather is warm, and the difference between water and the land will relatively be smaller. The temperature contrast will be relatively smaller, because water will be holding the heat, the lands get heated faster, but at the same time the land will also be losing heat slower also, meaning that imagine the day before the water has been heated to a certain level, and in the morning the land is slowly be heated to that level. So meaning that the temperature difference between them is the contrast is actually there, obviously there, but it wouldn't be that pronounced as in a winter season, because during a winter the land can actually get slightly more warmer. It's not like in winter the warmth is less, obviously it will be some 20 degrees, but in summer it could go to 30 degrees, imagine. But the water will be more or less remaining the same, meaning that the contrast between them will be more in winter. This is a logic that you could use based on the concept of specific heat. But it is slightly tricky because you might get confused. Some people might know the isothermal distribution and you try to recall that map, and that might actually be a difficult process for many. But this is one logic I use. Imagine land with temperature differences, land and water with temperature differences, and in summer and winter. So in summer, the differences will be there, obviously contrast will be there, but the difference is less. It's not the actual temperature we are considering, it's the difference between land and water. So I think I made a point there. So that is greater in summer actually. No, it's actually greater in winter and not summer. Okay, that's the thing. So this statement is wrong and we'll get the answer. It's D. 64 is D. And I'll tell you a few things that given in the NCERT, and I highly recommend you read 11th NCERT. That's the baseline for geography. So you should be reading it. Direct questions will be asked. In 2023, a lot of direct questions has been asked. This exact statement is given in 11th NCERT, geography NCERT. I'll show you. In general, the effect of the latitude on temperature is well pronounced on the map. as the isotherms are generally parallel to the latitude. Isotherms are regions having same temperature. So that wouldn't be a straight line like the latitude, because there will be variations across land, and even in land also there will be variations. Land and water, obvious variations. So the deviation from this general trend is more pronounced in January than in July, meaning it's in winter. Okay, that's the temperature contrast is more pronounced in January than in July, especially in the northern hemisphere. Because southern hemisphere has got less land, and having less land has got a moderating effect. So southern hemisphere has got less land mass, meaning that the contrast between land and water is less because of less land mass. So more or less a stable or uniform isotherms somewhat parallel to the latitude will be there in the southern hemisphere. I'm not saying that it's entirely parallel or it's entirely neutral or anything, but compared to the northern hemisphere, due to lesser landmass, the isotherms will be generally more parallel to the latitudes. Okay, this is the actual illustration of that. In January, you can see that the contrast is actually very high. In inland, if the isotherm is 20 degrees Celsius, and it's going to be up here only. So this is in case here in the same place in winter, in summer, it's more or less the same, like they are holding a same line here, but here it's very much pronounced, and as we move closer to the poles, it's very much pronounced, like the deviation is so intensive. So this is how we actually arrive at that thing. This is a factual understanding, but with the specific heat concept also you can solve this question. That's what I'm saying. But pay attention to diagrams like these, because in 2023 UPSC has asked a lot of questions based on these diagrams only, and I'll show you how and in the coming questions. So try to get basic terms like isotherms, then isobars, and the pressure gradient force. You need to have basic idea about that. Coriolis force, of course, and everybody will be saying that Coriolis force is larger at there and absent at the poles and absent at the equator and larger at the poles, and we know the bending, but try to understand it conceptually as to why the bending happens in one direction and it happens in another direction in the southern hemisphere. You need to know that, and I'll explain it in the concepts videos in the coming days, because otherwise it will take a lot of time and I need to be putting in so many illustrations for that. So don't worry, we'll cover all that hardcore concepts later. Then moving on, ilmenite and rutile, abundantly available in certain coastal tracts of India, are rich sources of which of the following? Okay, if you are from Kerala, again I'm saying, if you are from Kerala or South in general, you would have come across Ayari in Kollam, coastal areas of Kollam. There are abundant deposits of thorium in monazite sand. Also, among with that, there are other deposits as well, especially the reports of titanium. So that is there, and that is the question that is being asked here exactly, because if ilmenite or rutile is something that we know, or it's a rich source of, or it's an ore of any of these aluminum, copper or iron, we would have known, because we know the majority, we know that the ore of aluminum is bauxite, copper, iron, we know that. So very less chance that ilmenite and rutile being that. This would be something like a critical mineral or some rare earth mineral. So it would be titanium. And if you have a factual knowledge of IRE in Kollam district, Kollam coast, you will know the answer directly itself. So that's it. This is an ore we usually don't come across, and these are the major minerals that we often come across, and this is something we don't usually come across. So doing that math, we'll be arriving at the answer also. That's one way to do it. So yeah, but don't always go for that. But if you are, these are approaching a question actually has multiple ways, and no, it doesn't necessarily give a result on one single approach. You need to have a mix and match approach. Sometimes something works, sometimes that wouldn't work in that question, and you need to use a mix up of strategies. That is why I'm saying all of this. Okay, so the answer is D only. Okay, it's titanium. Moving on, in a seismograph, P waves are recorded earlier than S waves. Okay, in P waves, the individual particles vibrate to and fro in the direction of wave propagation, whereas in S waves, the particles vibrate up and down at right angles to the direction of wave propagation. This is a basic concept when you study earthquake, focus, hypocenter, epicenter, everything, and P and S waves. I think it's very basic knowledge. Everybody will be learning that. But for me, it was slightly tricky. Every time I try to remember it, and I forget it, because I know these are the primary waves that happens first, and then because of their the interaction of the primary waves with the other materials produces the secondary waves. That's the fundamental concept. But I confuse it a lot of times. So I made a chart for myself, and I'll share with that you later, so that it will be easier for you. So basic concept is that P waves are the one that is being produced in the actual epicenter. It is produced. No, in the focus it is produced, and at the epicenter, once it reaches the epicenter, secondary waves are produced. So that is the case. So it's right only, because it's the origin. This is the first action, and action of this is, S waves are actually a reaction to the primary waves. P waves, individual particles vibrate to and fro. Yeah, that's there. And that is why they are not damaging as the secondary waves, because secondary waves are actually vibrating in up and down direction, and they have got a shearing force. Shearing force can cause massive destruction. So that's the reason. So I think the answer is C. Moving on, I'll tell you the few things about P and S waves. This really helps. I made this chart for myself so that I can easily understand the concept in one go. So particle motion back and forth, and it is upside down. Primary waves are faster, secondary waves are slower. Arrive first, arrive after P waves. The question that is being asked. Can travel through liquid. This is one important thing. Primary waves can travel through anything, but secondary waves can travel through only solids. Secondary solid. Okay, remember that. Push-pull motion, meaning that it's going back and forth. Whereas the secondary waves will be moving up and down. Imagine a push-pull motion on a building and an up and down motion on a building. This is massively damaging. The second one. And shearing effect, that's it. If you're moving something like this, it's called shear. And if you're doing something like this, it's compression. So that's it. Then shearing motion. I think you will be knowing everything. And this is one extra table I have added. Okay. It's used to locate the distance to the epicenter. Okay. The primary waves are actually used to locate the distance to the epicenter, because epicenter is the surface that's close surface on Earth, where we actually feel the we actually feel it and feel the earthquake. Then this secondary waves actually helps identify Earth's internal layers. Okay, because it only travels through the solid, so we can identify this non-solid, the liquid part of the Earth's core. So that's it. This, I think, take a screenshot of this table, and I think that's all is needed for any question that is going to be asked in this P and S waves questions. So this is a very crystallized, structured way I have put it, because every time I forget it and I need to revisit it before the examination. So I shared that with you. Okay, next one. This is rather very tricky, because there is a lot of facts going on. Okay, and for me, the only thing I knew was Jhelum Lake river passes through Ular Lake. Yeah. Meandering of the Jhelum Lake actually forms the Ular Lake. So we know that. That is the only fact I know. So that is right. Krishna river directly feeds Kolleru Lake. We know Kolleru Lake, and Krishna river is actually draining towards Bay of Bengal, and Kolleru Lake is around that area. But the question is directly feeds, meaning that's very specific question, and the burden of proof is actually high. What if Krishna river feeds into some other river and that feeds into Kolleru Lake? And if you have the factual knowledge, you know that Kolleru Lake is actually in between the Krishna Godavari delta. So meaning that it's not directly feeding into it. So, and if you know the UPSC logic or UPSC language, I could actually eliminate it, because a question statement like this, Krishna river directly feeds Kolleru Lake, meaning that it doesn't directly feeds into Kolleru Lake. They just added it to make it wrong only. So that's one way. And the factual knowledge is that Kolleru Lake is located between Krishna and Godavari deltas. So that's it. But in actual examination, I could actually, the gut feeling was very strong that Krishna river directly feeds Kolleru Lake, meaning that it could be wrong. The burden of proof is so high, and the directly is an extreme statement. And in this particular language, not in every question, but in this particular question, it gives the sense that it could be wrong. So I could eliminate it. Meandering of Gandak river forms Ganwar Lake. Okay, this is very tricky. First of all, the only thing I knew was Kanwar Lake was in Bihar. So if I'm right, it's in Bihar. Yeah, it's in Bihar. And then meandering of Gandak river formed Kanwar Lake. This is actually a tricky question, because Gandak River actually flows through that area, and Kanwar Lake actually is an oxbow lake, so it is possible. So that's a challenging question only, because I could eliminate this, take this right, meaning that none is gone, all three is gone, and I'm stuck with 50-50 as usual. That's a classic situation we are facing. But here I would be like meandering of Gandak Lake formed Kanwar Lake. Okay, so I would think about, okay, if there are any large meanders on Gandak Lake or anything that I could remember, or what kind of lake river is Gandak River. So it's slightly on the trickier side. You have to take a chance, but there is actually a very factual knowledge that is being given in the NCERT that is being directly pulled. That is where I was saying that the pictures in NCERT are very important, because you could only reach up until this 50-50, not beyond that, without knowing the factual thing. So the actual fact is coming from the NCERT itself. That is this. This is a picture that has been given in the first chapter itself, and there are a lot of pictures given. Others like canyons, then canyons and other things like that are given. Gorgeous canyons and examples of that also are given, like waterfalls, Sharavati falls, and those kind of things are given, and especially rivers are mentioned. Those questions will be very important. Okay, questions could be asked like that. So that's why I'm explicitly showing you of this. Buri Gandak. It's not Gandak, it's a tributary of Gandak. That's Buri Gandak in Muzaffarpur, Bihar, showing a number of oxbow lake and cutoffs. And this is the actual source of Kanwar Lake. So this is explicitly taken from NCERT, and we cannot apply any logic on that matter. But the takeaway is to go through these pictures and the information that is given in these pictures. It's very important. In 2023, they have asked multiple questions based on that. So this is wrong, and the answer is yeah. But it's fine actually, because even after this examination, lot of keys had got a conflicting information about whether or not the third statement is right or not, because Gandak River is actually a tributary of Buri Gandak River, as the other way around, and many of the institutes have given that statement as right only. So that's a tricky question and tricky statement. It's fine to be stuck at 50-50, but take your chance. It's okay, especially if you're low on numbers, low on attempts, like less than, if you're targeting 90 and you're less than that, attempt it, no problem. Just attempt it, either one or only two. We'll see, because even UPSC can make it wrong, like give only one, saying that okay, or only two. It can happen. So in a 50-50, it's worth taking the risk, but only in a 50-50 situation, and your attempts are not up to your expected levels. Otherwise, don't. Okay, only 50-50 and your attempts are, that's an and condition. Two of the situations should match. Only if it's a 50-50 and your attempts are not up to the expected levels, you should not be attending this question. If it is not, you should be attending it. That's it. I have, like I said, go through these pictures and the information given below across. There are a lot of things, especially in the landforms, and I think the physical geography part of the class 11 NCERT. A lot of pictures are given about canyons, and they are mentioning a lot of the rivers and geographical features, etc. The question on Gandikota Canyon also was taken from that only. Okay, Kolleri Lake is between Krishna and Godavari. Buri Gandak is Kanwar Lake. Jhelum, Ular Lake. Like, that's the answer for that. Which one of the following is the best example of repeated falls in sea level giving rise to present day extensive marshland? Okay, so repeated fall in sea level is observed, and it have given rise to extensive marshland. So two things we could understand: that it's presently an extensive marshland. Extensive meaning it's a very large area. One. And repeated falls in sea levels give rise to meaning that repeated falls in sea level, meaning that it was adjacent to the coast. So that's another thing. It was a coastal region or adjacent to the coast, and it's presently an extensive marshland. So we have to analyze which among the following satisfy those criteria. Vitharganika mangroves. They're closer to the coast, that's there, and Vitharganika, literally turtles, Aribada, everything. So Vitharganika is adjacent to the sea, but it's not an extensive present day marshland. No, it's a mangrove area. So that's not the case. And it still is actually, repeated falls in sea level. The sea level is more or less remaining the same only. So that's not the case. Maracana salt pan makes a good chance, but I don't know whether this Maracana is. And whether it's an extensive marshland, I don't know. But given salt pans, it should be somewhere near to the sea, maybe. Naupada swamp, never heard of it. And whether it's closer to the sea level or present day extensive marshland, no idea. Rann of Kutch, coastal area, extensive marshland. We have seen that in a lot of films that it's an extensive marshland, and the land, and from the site of it, with all the white sand, white salt like deposits, it's very evident that there was a repeated falls in sea level, because the exposed sand in Rann of Kutch, from the pictures of it, is that there has been repeated falls in sea level that has given rise to such an extensive marshland. So it satisfies the both criteria. It's along the coast or nearer to the coast, and it's extensive. Yeah, Rann of Kutch is very extensive, and you have heard about the Karai camels in Rann of Kutch, other communities there, and the sheer extent of that place is very large. So I don't know about these, but this makes perfect sense for this question. So from the available knowledge, I'll be going for Rann of Kutch. There is an element of risk. I'm not going to deny that. But Vitharkanik I could eliminate. Marakanam and Naupada, I don't really know where they are located, or are they close to the coast, or are they extensive marshland? Rann of Kutch is an extensive marshland, and sea level fall is visible actually because of the sand or salt deposits there. It's very visible that it was once submerged under the ocean only, or the sea only. So that makes perfect sense. So this description fits very well with my knowledge and the available option. So I will be choosing that. Okay, it could be the other way around, but this fits the description very well because of the picture of Rann of Kutch I am having, and what all things I know about Rann of Kutch makes sense with regard to this question. So I chose that, and that's how we arrive at the answer. You cannot prepare things like that. Say, for example, a question in 2022 was asked about Chandipur in Odisha, where there was repeated fall of, the sea actually retracts towards the inside, and there is exposed coast happening, and people think, multiple times people have said that it is been there in some chocolates ad or things like that. You cannot actually picture those things and arrive at an answer, but few things are possible. I'm not asking you to go behind and identify all of these anomalous behaviors or anomalous features across the Indian subcontinent. It's not possible. Only one question will be there. Even if you don't know and you have enough attempts, no problem, just leave it. But use your logic. This question is one where we could actually use some logic and arrive at the answer. Of course, there are risks, but use it and it will work. Trust me. So that's it. Moving on, next question. About 3/4 of world's cobalt, a metal required for the manufacture of batteries for electric motor vehicles, is produced by. We know that. I think I told you yesterday itself the answer of this question. But we could try eliminating it a bit. World's cobalt is... We know cobalt, it's a critical mineral, and And Argentina, Chile and Brazil. Argentina, Chile and Bolivia. They are famous for what? They are famous for lithium. And lithium and cobalt are similar only. Well, similar as in their function, the kind of industries they are used is similar. But Argentina, even in lithium, it's not the largest producer. So about 3/4, meaning it's like entire monopoly. 75% is being held by a country, and definitely it's not Argentina. Kazakhstan has got an upper hand in uranium. That's a factual knowledge I have. So that won't be it, and I've never heard anything of that sort about Kazakhstan. Botswana could hold that, and Democratic Republic of Congo. These two are actually somewhat in a nearby region, but Botswana is more towards the southern Africa, and this is in the central South Africa. So this is where I have to take a chance. Okay, if you actually don't know, actually it's a very common fact because we always come across these things, and this has been in news because of the DRC Rwanda conflict. M23 rebels and the whole genocide happening there. That is why it is in news, and especially because the reason why the DRC is being targeted is because of its cobalt deposit. So that fact I knew. I'm saying that if you didn't know about it, you could arrive at this 50-50. Okay. Then one more thing you could use is that most of the deposits like this cobalt and metals are mostly in the Central African region. Of course, the other parts of Africa will have that, but mostly the Central African region will be holding these resources like cobalt metal deposits. And the Northern Africa will be having petroleum deposits. The regions of Sudan, Libya, and those regions closer to the Mediterranean Sea and along the Mediterranean and Red Sea, those regions will be having petroleum deposits. And towards the center, they will be having more metallic deposits. And towards the south also, they will be having metallic deposits, but it's mostly diamond-like deposits or natural diamond. You have heard about Kimberley diamonds in South Africa. So Botswana is towards further south. This is in the South Central Africa. So they are the ones more possible to have a metallic deposit. So that's why I choose DRC, or if you are not having the factual knowledge, you should be choosing DRC based on that. Or if you could use any other logic, use that. This is where having an idea that Botswana is not in the Central Africa helps. It's in the southern side of Africa helps, and Kazakhstan is not the leader in cobalt, it's in uranium helps, and Argentina is focusing on lithium. That knowledge also helps, because we are using all that knowledge, those accumulated knowledge, to eliminate each options and arriving at the answer. So for me, this wasn't very tricky, or I didn't have to use any logic, because I knew the fact, because that was very much in news that time. I think even now, up until recently, the war was on full swing, and a lot of mishappenings happened in DRC, and due to this M23 rebel that is being allegedly funded by Rwanda. So that's it. Moving on, I'll tell you a few things after these questions are being done. Okay, so stick together. Which of the following is a part of Congo Basin? UPSC has, for the last 4 years, gave at least one question about Congo Basin. And the reason is because it's the largest peatland. And the same exact question has been asked. Largest peatland, largest deposits of, after the Amazon, which holds the largest deposits of, land, largest emitter of oxygen, things like that. Because Congo Basin is a equatorial forest, and it holds significant relevance, just like Amazonian forest. So the question about Congo Basin is very much in news, very much repeatedly asked by UPSC. I think in 23 it has been asked, 24 also it has been asked. I think 25 I don't remember. In 24 also Congo Basin based question was asked. So you need to know. This is where it is slightly on the trickier side. Okay, but we can try to eliminate few one, because Congo Basin, if you know that it's a equatorial forest region. Mainly it's equatorial forest region drained by the Congo River. So that's it. So we need to know which all countries are not part of that equatorial region. We know that South Sudan, it's dry and arid. It's not part of the equatorial region. Uganda, it's also somewhat dry and arid. Nigeria also somewhat arid region. It's in the Sahel region. So it's not in the equatorial region. So we can actually arrive at the answer as Cameroon. Even though we don't know where Cameroon is, and if you could know Nigeria, South Sudan and Uganda, this is where learning the map of Africa really helps. And compartmentalize the regions based on the Saharan, Sub-Saharan or Sahel region, equatorial region, and then the Southern African region. It's the same logic I used in this question also, the above question. So learning the map of Africa really helps, where all these countries fall. And it's actually a good practice to learn the map of Africa, especially the countries like, location of countries like Sudan, Eritrea, Ethiopia, then DRC, Rwanda, and Nigeria. This is the map of Congo River Basin, and it has got Gabon, Republic of Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo. There are two Congos, Republic of Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo, Central African Republic, erstwhile known as Zaire, and Gabon. And this small country is called Equatorial Guinea. Okay, there is another country. This Equatorial Guinea is very unique. It has got two parts. One is here and one is here. It has got a mainland and an island that together constitutes the Equatorial Guinea. It was a Spanish colony, Spanish colony, and there is Cameroon. So these are the major countries of Congo region. Moving on, Amarkantak hills are at the confluence of Vindhya and Sahyadri ranges. Okay, right off the bat, you will know that it's not the right answer, because there is no way Vindhya and Sahyadri are having a connection, because Sahyadri is the northern part of Western Ghats, and I don't think they are connecting anywhere. And Amarkantak Hills absolutely has no connection to that. So this is wrong. Bilgiri Ranjan Hills constitute the easternmost part of Satpura range. This is where actually looking into the full forms of names actually helps, because if you didn't know Bilgiri Ranjan Hills is part of the BRT tiger reserves in Karnataka, it would be slightly more difficult to solve it, because going by the name itself it's difficult, because Satpura range can have a I can have a hill named Bilgiri Ranjan. It doesn't sound like exclusively South Indian or North Indian or anything. It could sound anything. But this Bilgiri Ranjan Hills is part of the Bilgiri Ranjan Reserve Forest or the BRT Tiger Reserve. So we know where BRT Tiger Reserve, it's in Karnataka and it has no connection to Satpura. That's gone. And this is gone. Sheshajalam Hills. We know that it's in Andhra Pradesh. So Sheshajalam Hills constitute the southernmost part of Western Ghats. And the Western Ghats doesn't even touch Andhra Pradesh. So that's gone. And we are with the answer. The only tricky part is this for me actually, because Bilgiri Ranjan Tiger Hills, I actually didn't know that Bilgiri Ranjan is the name of BRT Tiger Reserve. So this is where actually you should be, dwelling deep into the names itself. If you are hearing a short form for any other national park or any place, just go and search for their actual name. So that's how you'll be able to solve questions like this. So that's it. Answer is none. Okay. Yeah. Very difficult. If you know, you know. Otherwise, go on. That's the kind of question. That's the kind of way they have set the options. Earlier, we could use elimination. Like I said, in the 2022, there was option of Afghanistan, borders with Afghanistan. Azerbaijan was given, and we could eliminate that. But here, it's very tricky. If you know, you know. That's why I'm saying that from now on, it's very important to learn the bordering countries of major conflict regions or the regions, countries in news, and definitely use mnemonics. Otherwise, it's going to be a hell. It's not at all easy for you to remember that, especially in the heat of the examination. So use a mnemonic and try to understand that. And there will be a lot of materials available where you could actually use some mnemonics. And closer to the examination, I'll be sharing you some of the mnemonics I used, or we'll make something that fits everybody. So the answer is actually, if only you know that there is no other way around it to eliminate it. Just that you need to study this map and make a mnemonic. Only Hungary, the given option, it's only Hungary and Romania, if that's given. No, Romania, Hungary, yeah. Rest of it is not there. Latvia, Lithuania, they are here. They are Baltic states and they don't share a border with Ukraine. So that's one thing you could eliminate, but even then, it's very tricky. If you could eliminate 2, meaning that only 5, only 4, yeah, we could only eliminate this much. So it's very tricky. If you know, you know. You should be knowing that, because Russia-Ukraine was very much in news, and you should be knowing that. So from now on, look up those questions, look up those areas. For example, Israel, Palestine, DRZ, Sudan, the regions across Sudan, that's very important. So those should be known. And Venezuela also is important, because Venezuela is also frequently in news. So the answer is Hungary and Romania, only 2. Okay, learn the map. Use mnemonics and make a list of these countries that are mainly in news, especially in the Middle East and South America. UPSC hasn't touched, especially in Middle East, Africa and South America. UPSC hasn't touched the South American part yet, but there's a good chance that they will be moving towards the South America. But Middle East is certain. Africa is certain. The only add-on will be South America. So don't skip Africa and Middle East thinking that they won't be asking it, because they will be asking about Middle East and Africa. UPSC's favorite, those 2 areas. Which one of the following countries has been suffering from decades of civil strife and food shortages and was in news in the recent past for its very severe famine? Very severe famine. Ecuador is a country in South America, so that's different. This is in Central America, okay. Angola is in Africa, and Somalia. Somalia is very infamous for civil strife, lack of government, lack of machinery, Somalian pirates. So everything in terms of development, Somalia is the benchmark, or is a prime example of how not to be. So that's a natural choice for all of this. So that's it. Somalia. This is another question. North Kivu and Ituri. Okay. War between Armenia and Azerbaijan. If you know a few things, you could actually eliminate it and arrive at the answer. Especially the PYQs. PYQs comes very handy. Current affair news comes really handy. War between Armenia and Azerbaijan. We know they are talking about this Nagorno-Karabakh. That's the place. So this is been mismatched, meaning that these two will be gone. Okay, Nagorno-Karabakh should be here, and meaning that this will be wrong only. Okay, these two are gone. Then Kherson and Zaporizhia. Okay, dispute between Israel and Lebanon. Going by the name itself, it sounds very much Russian. So that won't be a dispute between Israel and Lebanon. Gone. We'll arrive at the answer. Very little knowledge, just a simple trick, and you arrive at the answer. This should be this, meaning that this shouldn't be this. So both of them gone. So all three gone, and only two gone. We are left with only one or none. Kherson and Zaporizhia sounds like a Russian name, obviously. Have you heard about any place in Israel or Lebanon that sounds like Kherson, Zaporizhia with too many ZH and double Z and HS? No, that's basically a Russian thing. So that's gone. That's answer is none. D. It's a simple logic, but you understand how it is very much handy when it comes to the questions like this. Last day I gave you North Kivu and Uttari where it belongs to. I think North Kivu and Uttari in DRZ. Yeah, North Kivu and Uttari in DRZ. So I've given that information. This insurgency in Mozambique, this has been asked in 2021. The answer is Cabo Delgado. UPSC has given a question where matching these options, and in which Cabo Delgado was given, and I think Spain was also given as the the other match. But the answer is Mozambique. So the place in news, insurgency in Mozambique, is referring to Cabo Delgado. Okay, that's a PYQ. So if you know that also, you could actually eliminate it. But in this particular question, it's not needed because these two are connected. Had they not been connected, then you should be relying on that knowledge. Then Donbass. Again, these are all always in news, this region. Again, I have discussed you. Tigray, Amhara, Oromio. These are all in Yemen. No, sorry, not Yemen. Ethiopia. Ethiopia. See, these are all favorite areas of UPSC. North Kivu, Turi, DRC. Tigray, Ethiopia. Like I said yesterday also, Sudan, DRC, Ethiopia. These are the regions favorite of UPSC. They will be somehow putting it in any question. Like at least an option. Multiple options question, multiple statement questions. They will be putting it as an entry. In this question, it is Sudan. It is DRC. Here it's Ethiopia. And later the Sudan question is also there. So that's UPSC's favorite, and I've given you a proper list, and I'll be sharing this again also. So go through that and it will definitely reward you. Kachin, people can actually make it wrong because Kachin is in Myanmar, and this is actually very much in news, but we could miss that. So that's wrong. But there is one good thing is that Ethiopia is connected to Tigray, and using the other logic, we could actually eliminate it. That Ethiopia shouldn't be there. But the issue is that you should be knowing that Kachin is not in Ethiopia, meaning that you should be knowing some places in Ethiopia, like Oromio, Amhara, Tigray, other things. So the same logic could be there, but with a slightly more risk because Kachin you need to know. Okay. But even then, it's fine only. So these two are gone again. Donbass, obviously. Donbass, Donetsk, Luhansk, obviously in Russia-Ukraine war, not in Syria. This is very much in news. Exact reason why this war was started because of the autonomy of Donbass region. Donbass is actually a region encompassing, few of the oblasts. Oblasts are the provinces in Ukraine, Donetsk and Luhansk. So those two provinces, oblasts, constitute the Donbass region. And Russia is laying its claim to those regions, meaning that it's sharing the border with Russia, and there is a significant Russian population in that region. It's not in Syria, obviously. That is gone, this is gone, and this is gone. The answer is none. So again, I am sharing you the details or things you should be looking at. Sudan conflict region, Darfur, very important. Khartoum, of course, you might know, so capital of Sudan. South Kordofan, Blue Nile, something we don't think that's name of a place. It's very important. Abyei region, okay, don't forget. Abyei region, Sudan and South Sudan disputed because the South Sudan was created based on a civil war in Sudan, and just I think South Sudan is the last country to join UN or the latest country to be formed in 2014, I guess. And the capital of South Sudan is Juba, and they are having a dispute. Sudan is having multiple disputes within itself, and it is having a dispute with South Sudan. So, needless to say, Sudan is in a complete rapid fire round. So I feel bad for the people there. Ethiopia, conflict region, Tigray, Amhara, Oromio, and they are all ethnic clashes, either with the government or with the other, militant groups out there. Then there is Somali region, Afar region, Gambela. Okay, those regions are very important. Remember all of these regions because questions will be asked, and at least you could eliminate it. Like you saw last time, we could eliminate it. Especially in this only two questions, it's very tricky, and you need to know certain facts and make your facts useful in such a way that you could be able to eliminate the options. Like the questions we have discussed earlier. DRC, North Kivu, South Kivu, Ituri. So these are all DRC. Tanganyika, Kasai region, Maniama, Katanga. These are all DRC's conflict region. Just remember that also. M23 rebels, please remember that. They are actually the driving factors of insurgency in DRC, and they are allegedly funded by Rwanda. That's another story. That's an international relations story. We'll get back to those later. So that's it. I think you got some insights from this question, and you'll be able to answer the questions if anything from this comes up in the next coming years, whether it's 2026 or 2027. So stick to the channel. If you haven't watched the earlier videos, try watching them, and you will get an idea about that, because we are building it brick by brick, slowly building the concept, slowly building it. So watch it at your comfort, share it with your friends, and it will help everybody to reach at a level where we can actually discuss in an equal footing. So this becomes very rewarding. I try to make it very short, and I'll cut my usual loose talks and everything, but the thing is, if you can stick with this logic, you will eventually be able to attempt at least 10 to 20 questions more than what you are doing right now. And maybe in most aspirants' cases, that's all is needed to clear the prelims. So let's clear the prelims easily, work for the mains, and let's get into the list as soon as possible. So thank you for watching, and see you very soon.